shutting down an economy like shutting down a machine isn't that hard. It's starting it back up that's hard, because you're not really quite sure what's going to happen.
So David, let's maybe just kind of give the general take on the U.S. Economic, economy and global market update. Kind of give us that, and then when you're ready to dive into slides, just say, "Hey, Brett, I'm ready to dive in."
Sure. So, truly unique, special, different time. I think that goes without saying. Been doing this for 35, 37 years, something like that. Formerly trained as an economist, kind of turned into a money manager over years. And I've never seen such a prolonged period of and such a massive amount of government stimulus in all its various forms. Low interest rates, that's a way of stimulating the economy. Obviously, other forms of outright, checks being mailed and other forms of stimuli are exactly that, right? This is meant to stimulate growth. And there's a whole lot of other things, somewhat more technical. I won't go into all of those, but long story short, and remember, it's not really just the COVID period. This is backdrop. It really, in some ways, there's an overhang from the great financial crisis back in, kind of 2007, 8, largely over by 2009. A lot of the liquidity and the measures that were being taken then are generally similar to the measures being undertaken now. Different time, different place, different reasons, somewhat different timing, different degree. But the point is, there is still, I would argue, an overhang, a 10-year plus now overhang of excess liquidity going all the way back to the, measures put in place during the great financial crisis. Interest rates never really got back up to where they were kind of, on average over longer periods of time. Again, a source of more stimulus in the economy. Fast forward, we're starting to really completely come out of that 10-year, difficult period. Whammo, right? COVID, only thing to do, cut interest rates, stimulate the economy, mail out checks, got to get this thing going. The engine cannot stop, or at least we had to restart it because we ourselves elected to kind of stop it, which is very, very unusual. In my experience in studying economic history for centuries and in my own personal experience, I'm not aware of a period when any government ever said, we will now shut down our economy, either, materially or some would argue kind of completely for a while. It's just never happened before. So we are in uncharted territory. And by the way, shutting down an economy like shutting down a machine isn't that hard. It's starting it back up that's hard, because you're not really quite sure what's going to happen. Could start up just fine, no problem. Could be very problematic, right? And so it's the restarting that was always going to be more challenging than the shutting down. And I think we're all experiencing that now. But long story short, 10 to 12 years of excess liquidity in the system. Fast forward, here we are now, more and more and more excess liquidity. That's the overall environment that the global and the U.S. economies are operating within. And it's got some pretty profound implications, at least for now. And if we look out 6, 12, maybe 18 months, it's very hard for us to see much past that. And I always try and find a vehicle to communicate this. And so the vehicle I chose not too long back in some public appearances was, saying it is the easiest forecast that I've ever done in my career, because it's really pretty obvious what's happening now, what's going to keep happening. I myself, therefore, in front of this audience, did not give the forecast. I basically talked them through making the forecast by asking questions, and then early on I told them, let me give you a little hint to our game we're playing. The answer to every question that we're going to ask is up. Government spending up. As you can see here, if you're looking at the screen, by our red, yellow, green dials. We learned a long time ago, most people see things, it's fairly black and white, and colors certainly help. So we keep it really simple. Green dial up, good. If the dial is on the red down, bad. So government spending, what's the answer, everybody? Up. Consumer spending, up. Investment spending, up. Net exports, that's a different topic. We're exporting and importing. Normally, they're negative for the U.S., and the fact that they're not negative means that we're importing less than we usually do relative to our exports. So I don't want to go too down that path. But long story short, even on a net export basis, this is an up export basis. This is an up kind of number. And if we follow that theme through and go on to the next slide, which Brent is rolling over there. Employment up, but slowing, right? Yellow to us means maybe like warming up or warming down, but in neither state. And so employment, the better part of the gains are behind us, but there'll still be a grind down in unemployment. That's good. Housing up. Talk to your friends, neighbors, go check out your house on Zillow, right? And even if we go then on Brent to the next slide, and then we'll stop and kind of summarize it all. A little bit different in the interest rate world, because of course interest rates kind of are the opposite to what we think. Rates going down are good for bond prices and good for investors. Rates going up, bad for bond prices. But ultimately, I would argue not necessarily bad for investors, because, of course, now you're earning a higher yield on your fixed income and debt and other of those forms of investments. But, the Fed's on hold. Interest rates keep wanting to push back up. They keep getting pushed back down, but they keep getting pushed back up. So that's a tug of war. Inflation clearly trying to go higher, higher, higher. Every now and again, we get information that, kind of cools it off a little bit, but there's clearly inflationary pressures bubbling. And against the backdrop or underlying all this is one of the more important things we look at, corporate earnings, which are, we're literally setting records. Some of that is off of abnormally low numbers of 6 and 12 and 18 months ago. We all know what was happening, 12 months ago. We were looking around wondering, is this ever going to end? Literally ever going to end? And so, so a lot of that is measurement and timing differences, but corporate earnings in corporate America is doing fantastic. They're on a very, very strong earnings run. And so if we go then into market forecast, and we'll pause here for a moment, this is a really good environment for everything but fixed income investors, where I would argue you can still hold some debt, some fixed income in your portfolios, probably should, depending on your situation. But we need to be thoughtful about how we're going to own that fixed income. So maybe to stop there and summarize, as I did with this large group of really very high net worth private investors a few weeks back, everything on my dashboard, all my gauges, they're green. They're up, 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 up. And that's very a good sign for, risk assets, for real estate, for stocks, for other investable forms of assets. This period, in our opinion, just an opinion, will last for another 6, 12 months, maybe a bit longer. There will be a reckoning out there. It can't go on forever. But for right now, it's really a very positive economic and market environment for investors.
Thank you so much, David.